Imagine this. You're at a conference eagerly waiting for the event to start so that you can hear the keynote speaker. Suddenly, the organizer of the event approaches you with an obvious panic. The scheduled speaker's flight had been canceled last minute, and they're now asking you if you can step in. You have less than an hour to prepare a presentation that could potentially influence hundreds of industry professionals and elevate your business potential in ways that you had never dreamed possible. Your heart races as you realize the magnitude of this unexpected opportunity. But as you sit down to outline your talk, your mind goes blank. How would you handle this situation? What if I told you that you could create a compelling, organized outline for any presentation in only 15 minutes? Today, I'm going to share with you a game-changing method for outlining presentations, talks, public speaking engagements, online courses, webinars, any form of communication where you have an audience and a message and you want to make a difference and have an incredible amount of impact. One method that will help you outline your talks in 15 minutes or less. That and so much more in this episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show.
Are you ready to take your message, your business, and your life to the next level?
Want to learn from someone with more than a decade of experience, training tens of thousands of people from all around the world?
Hi, Cliff. This is Pauline from Auckland, New Zealand.
John from Calgary, Alberta.
Amy Porterfield.
Michael Hyatt.
Dan here from Dunedin, New Zealand.
Ray Edwards. Mark Mason. Mike Stelzner.
Pat from Smart Passive Income.
It's Darren from Melbourne, Australia.
Now is the time to live the life of your dreams and do the work you feel most called to do in the world.
Welcome to the Cliff Ravenscraft Show.
Here's your host, Cliff Ravenscraft.
I am so glad that you tuned in to this episode. This is, by the way, the second part in what may only be a two-part series on Cliff's notes on public speaking. We'll see if there's more to come. But certainly, I couldn't share with you my passion for how to take your public speaking to the next level without sharing with you the exact process that I have used to outline any presentation quickly and effectively. It doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur who is just now stepping into the world of thought leadership, or if you're a seasoned speaker looking to streamline how you prepare for your next talk. This episode is for you, and you're going to want to take notes. I am going to share with you 9 powerful, focusing questions that will enable you to outline any presentation in 15 minutes or less. Prior to being introduced to this process, I struggled with that blank canvas, that empty document with nothing but white space. What am I going to say? How am I going to say it? How am I going to prepare? In my previous episode, part 1, I shared with you just how many days and or weeks leading up to any presentation I was filled with anxiety, worry, and all sort of just anxiousness about how to prepare this talk. What am I going to say? How am I going to impress people? All of that stuff. Well, when I went to the SCORE conference hosted by 2 of my mentors, Ken Davis and Michael Hyatt, I was introduced to the SCORE method of outlining talks. And while it felt a little restricting at first, I have come to absolutely love this outline. It's not that I use it for every single episode of every podcast that I produce. However, when I am ever in a moment of time where I'm like, I would love to put out a podcast episode, but I have no inspired message that is aching to be shared from the innermost part of my being. And sometimes those episodes, quite frankly, when I have those, could benefit from having the SCORE method applied to it. Just saying, note to self. However, at any point, I can create more effective, clear, focused communications if I would just apply this method. And the way that I'm going to share this method with you is simply tell you that there are 9 focusing questions that if you have the answers to these 9 questions, you will actually have an outline. If you devote just 1 minute to each of the questions, you could potentially have an outline in 9 minutes. It's that simple. So let me go ahead and get started here with focusing question number 1. Who is the target audience? Now, this question doesn't need a lot of explanation. You're simply going to ask, okay, this event, this opportunity that's just come up last minute, what is this conference all about? Who are these people? What do they all have in common? How would I define them as a target audience? Now, as I'm going through these 9 focusing questions, I'm going to share with you my outline for this talk, and I'm going to tell you what my answers to each of these questions are. So I asked myself, question number 1, who is the target audience? Entrepreneurs who are emerging as a thought leader. That's the way that I defined you as a target audience for this presentation. Entrepreneurs who are emerging as a thought leader. That's my target audience. All right, so now I've got my target audience. Focusing question number 2. Is the talk persuasive or enabling? Now, I have heard people debate this over time, but when I went to the SCORE conference, and I've been 3 different times to the entire 4-day event, and then I even did an additional 1-day intensive workshop from the SCORE conference, and I have heard Ken Davis say every time that there are only 2 types of talks that you can give. You are either giving a persuasive talk or you are giving an enabling talk. And quite simply, a persuasive talk is where you're trying to convince somebody to hold a certain belief, or you're trying to convince somebody to go and do something, giving them evidence as to why they should fill in the blank. Or if it's an enabling talk, you're going to be educating that person. You're going to give them the action steps, the items necessary, the information to enable them to do what it is that the talk is enabling them to do. So it's either are you persuading them or are you enabling them? Now, I'm not going to go into the intricacies of having a persuasive talk with an enabling close or a persuasive opening with an enabling message. That's a little bit more in the weeds, and that's not what we're focused on today. So the focusing on the question, number 2, is the talk persuasive or enabling? Well, my answer to this question today is this is an enabling talk. This presentation that I'm giving you, I will teach this audience how to accomplish a specific task. So now I move on to focusing question number 3. What is the objective or purpose of this talk? There's in the SCORE method, they actually talk about subject first, and then your central theme, and then your objective. And so if you were to go to the SCORE conference or the SCORE speaker training, I'll put links to all of this stuff below. I don't think they do the conference anymore, but I have learned that there is a Teachable course, I believe it's on Teachable, that I will link to where you can go through what used to be the DVD course materials of where Ken Davis taught all of this stuff live. It's a very great course, by the way. I highly recommend it. And also, I'll put a link to the book, The Secrets, actually, it's just Secrets of Dynamic Communication by Ken Davis. Links to all of that so you can really dive deep and learn the entire SCORE method that I was given. But because I wanted to give this to you in 9 questions, I'm not going to ask you to answer the question what your subject is and what your central theme is. We're just going to cut straight to the chase and ask you, what is the objective of your talk? What is the purpose? You've got your target audience. You now know that you're enabling them. What are you enabling them to do essentially? What is the purpose? Here's the answer to that question. I'm going to enable you how to create an outline for any presentation or talk in 15 minutes or less. That is what my objective. That's the purpose of me communicating in this focused piece of content that I'm creating for you. All right, so now you have the answer to the focusing question number 3. Now we move on to focusing question number 4. What keyword will I use? Now, this points to the fact that many people in a presentation, you'll make several points. And in the SCORE method, these are called rationale. We'll get to rationale in just a moment, but there are going to be a certain number of key points or rationale that you are going to use. And the SCORE method recommends that you choose a keyword that you can use throughout the entire presentation. An example of what not to do, and ever since it's been pointed out to me, how many times have I seen this? Somebody will say, okay, there are 3 things that you can do to achieve this outcome. The first thing, and the second point, and the third ingredient. And so sometimes they just mix things up. Or they'll even say, I've got 3 ingredients that you must include into this recipe to bake the world's most famous cake. And they'll say there are 3 ingredients, and they'll come to the first one, and they'll say the first thing that you want to do is the first thing you want to pick out of your cabinet is this ingredient or whatever. And it kind of just loses the flow and also the focus on what is your talk providing. So if you get a keyword, then you have something where it's like, oh, what was Cliff's talk about? Oh, it was 9 questions that I could ask. And if I could answer these 9 questions, I'm going to be able to create an outline for a presentation or talk or a podcast episode or a course in 15 minutes or less. So the choosing a keyword like questions, and of course, in the SCORE method, they also talk about the idea of putting an adjective in front of it. So, for example, I'm giving you focusing questions. And so what this does is it's indicating even further what are these questions intending to do? These questions are intended to keep you focused on the audience, to keep you focused on the enabling aspect of it, to keep you focused on the objective. So these focusing questions. Now, let me give you some examples of other keywords that you could choose. You could do every person can live a happier life, which, by the way, that is enabling. And so by reciting and memorizing these 4 affirmations, all right, by adopting these 4 beliefs would be another keyword. Now, let me see if I can think of a persuading. So a persuading talk where I'm going to try to convince you to go and do something. Every aspiring entrepreneur who is becoming a thought leader, every emerging thought leader should do more public speaking because of these 5 reasons. So these 5 reasons are is the benefit. Is the keyword. I was thinking benefit. The next thing I was going to say, another keyword I could choose in that persuasive talk, every emerging entrepreneur should do more public speaking because of these 5 benefits. All right. So you get the idea. Now, it may be valuable to create an entire list of keywords that you can choose from. I'm going to share with you some of the keywords that I have here in my list. These 5, I'm just going to use the word these, and then I'm going to use the word 5 because I typically do talks with 3 to 5, somewhere between 3 to 5 rationale or points. But I could talk about these 5 applications, these 5 areas, these 5 attitudes, these 5 beliefs, these 5 boundaries, these 5 challenges, these 5 choices, these 5 consequences, these 5 dangers, these 5 declarations, these 5 elements, these 5 examples, these 5 factors, these 5 fears, these 5 flaws, these 5 gifts, these 5 habits, these 5 ideas. So do you get the idea? Is that you are using a keyword and you're going to use that keyword. The first idea is, and now we're going to move to the second idea, and then you would state that idea. And the third idea is this. Now, again, I'll leave it up to you if you want to also put the adjective in front of it. These 5 clarifying ideas. The first clarifying idea is. So anyway, the question here is, what keyword will I use? The keyword I chose for this presentation is questions. And I did use the adjective focusing. So my talk, this presentation, in my outline, when I was preparing it, when I answered the question, focusing question, in fact, what keyword will I use? The answer was focusing questions. All right, moving on to focusing question number 5. What is my pregnant sentence? This is one of my favorite parts of the SCORE method. If you cannot clearly communicate everything there is to communicate about what your talk is about in a single sentence, you should not be invited to have the opportunity to speak that message on a stage. That is something that I heard multiple times at the SCORE conference, and while it stung when I heard it at first, the reality is that I was never prepared to describe in a single sentence what my talk was about if somebody were to ask me, what are you speaking about tomorrow? Or if somebody saw me afterwards and they said, hey, I'm so sorry I missed your talk. I had a lunch appointment with so-and-so and I got here late. I heard that you talked this morning. What was your talk about? And if I can't say that or the answer to that question in a single statement, it means that I don't have a lot of clarity about what my talk is. So what Ken Davis had developed is this fill in the blank kind of Mad Lib style. You remember as a kid, they had these Mad Libs book and they would have these statements and, well, at first they would say, give us a noun, give us an adjective, give us a whatever. And then you would write those down. And then you would have these fill in the blanks below with a kind of a narrative story, and you would take your adjective and go put it in all the spots. And you'd read these stories, and it'd be kind of funny based upon what you had written above just randomly. Well, this is very similar in that you are going to fill in some statements, but with some intentionality. You're not just going to make this stuff up. You're going to use the answers from the first 4 focusing questions. So there are 2 different formats for the pregnant sentence, and I'm going to give you the entire outline. The first one is for the persuasive talk. And here is the outline. Every target audience should, whatever it is you want your audience to do or believe or etc. It's that obviously this is a persuasive, whatever you're trying to persuade them to do or be or whatever. And then why? You're going to answer the question. Because of the and then you fill in the blank with the number of the keyword plural noun. So here's what that looks like for this talk. Actually, let me just say that I'm going to give you this talk as if it were a persuasive talk. So every entrepreneur emerging as a thought leader should do more public speaking at industry conferences because of these 5 benefits, or because of these 5 profitable reasons, or whatever. You get the idea. So now, hey, Cliff, what was your talk about? Well, if anybody were to ask me, hey, Cliff, what was this episode, part 2 of your Cliff's Notes on Public Speaking about? Episode number 746 of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. Oh, yeah. Well, I actually did a podcast episode how any emerging entrepreneur who is reaching out in the world as a thought leader can outline any presentation in 15 minutes or less by simply answering 9 focusing questions. So I kind of could just make that up off the top of my head, because I know that my pregnant sentence, and the answer to the question, what is my pregnant sentence? Word for word, I'm looking at it right here. Every entrepreneur emerging as a thought leader can outline any presentation within 15 minutes by answering 9 focusing questions. That is my pregnant sentence for an enabling talk. So in the enabling talk, it's every target audience can fill in the blank with whatever they can do. And then you're going to kind of ask the question how, but you don't put the word how in there. So the question how is by fill in the blank. And that should be something related to your rationale, your keyword in there. So mine is 9 focusing questions. You get the idea. So this is what the pregnant sentence is. For a persuasive talk is every fill in the blank should fill in the blank because of fill in the blank. And for an enabling talk, every blank can blank by fill in the blank. It is so simple. Yet the statement is a little clunky and it's a little pregnant with lots of information. And very rarely, if ever, do I actually ever use that sentence in my presentations. Although there have been a number of times when I have chosen to intentionally use a paraphrased version of my pregnant sentence in the talk. In fact, if you are an entrepreneur who is emerging as a thought leader and you want to get in front of more audiences so that more people will know about you, I believe that you can more effectively outline any presentation with 15 minutes or less by simply answering these 9 questions. And see, that's how I could take that statement and kind of just massage it and paraphrase it into a way that I know exactly what this talk is, because I know my pregnant sentence. It's a focusing question number 5. What is your pregnant sentence? Focusing question number 6. What are the rationale that fit your keyword? Now, rationale is simply a set of reasons or logical basis for a course of action or a belief that you are proposing. In the context of a presentation outline, you're simply going to be listing your rationales as your main points, the reasons that support the central idea of the pregnant sentence, your objective, your purpose of actually being on the stage, whether it's virtual or in person. You get the idea. These rationale are going to form the backbone of your presentation and provide structure for how you're going to logically flow your argument throughout the talk. This is the one thing that a lot of people who are wanting to up their game in public speaking, they're like, I really feel like I lack flow. Sometimes I see people on a stage and it seems like their message flows. It's like it's like they've rehearsed it and they know it inside and out. And while that may be the case in many instances, the reality is it's possible for you to with a very short period of time. Say, given that scenario, where are you asked to give a talk with less than a 1 hour notice? Can you get up there on stage, confidently deliver a talk with no slides at all, and go through and share 4 reasons why someone should do something? And you just have written down on a piece of paper in front of you, reason 1 is this, reason 2 is this, reason 3 is this, reason 4 is this. Can you get up there and give that presentation and have it flow? Yes. If you have an outline like this, it is definitely possible. Now, when I was presented with all of this information and insight for how to outline a talk, I must say I was awkward and it did not flow at first. But after giving it a few times and doing these talks in front of a small group of people at the conference, by the time I left, I felt like I could easily flow on practically any topic. And since then, I flow on a lot of things. And again, sometimes it would be best if I would have taken 15 minutes or more to maybe flesh out the outline a little bit more clearly. But you get the idea. All right, so now you know what rationale are. Quite simply, the rationales that I'm using for this talk are simply the questions themselves that I've shared with you. So the rationale for focusing question number 6 is, what are the rationales that fit your keyword? All right, so what are the points? What are the ingredients? What are the steps? What are the beliefs? What are the reasons? What are the benefits? Just write them out. And then we move on to focusing question number 7. What resources support your rationale? Now, if you have more than 15 minutes to figure out your resources, then I encourage you to take them. Your resources basically refer to supporting materials, evidence, examples that reinforce the main points that you're basically making. These can include personal anecdote or experiences. I've used a couple of those here. Expert opinions or quotes. You could do a little research for that if you have time. You could even bring in visual aids, charts, graphics, or images into your slides, assuming you have more than 60 minutes to prepare for that. It's the analogies or metaphors that you share in your talk. It's the historical examples or the scientific studies or the research findings. Again, the more time that you do have to prepare for a talk, focusing question number 7, this is where you can really get in and add a lot of meat to your talk that is designed to stay focused on simply making that rationale, that central point, that focusing question make lots of sense. All right? Then we move on to focusing question number 8. How will you open and transition into your talk? One of the things that I loved when I went to the SCORE conference is somebody had recommended, when you go up on stage, don't do what most speakers do. Tap on the microphone. Can you hear me? Is this thing on? Thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be in front of this audience. Just go to any conference and just take note of the first 1 to 3 statements out of any speaker's mouth. All right? Then, instead, choose what words are going to come out of your mouth as your first words. If there's anything that I attempt to memorize, it's just the first statement and the closing statement. That's, for me, I know exactly what words I'm going to say, the first sentence that I'm going to say when I'm on the stage. In this episode, I outlined, imagine this. You're at a conference eagerly waiting to hear the keynote speaker, and suddenly the organizer approaches you, obviously in a panic. ... And then I went on from there to paint a picture, and I knew that I was going to, at one point, play the jingle, and then I was going to come in and talk to you and share with you today exactly this process that I'm sharing with you. I had a clear picture in my head of exactly how to start this piece of communication. So I knew how I would open and how I would transition to begin speaking about these 9 focusing questions because I answered focusing question number 8. How will you open and transition? And then focusing question number 9. How will you transition and close? Now, you're about ready to see how I'm going to transition and close this communication. But before I do want to go ahead and share with you some options that you could choose that might make your communication style really stand out from other speakers. Here are some options for openings. A startling statement. A statistic. You could share a quotation. You could tell a story. You could paint a vivid word picture. In a way, I kind of did a little bit of the vivid word picture and a little bit of a story in the open of today. You could draw a comparison. You could share a recent discovery. You can state a problem. Depending on the type of presentation, you might share a video clip. Depending upon the licensing agreements of your organizers, you could play a song. You could give a prediction. You could read a brief poem. You could, depends on what the current events are, but you could give reference to a current event. You could share a personal observation. You could give a dramatic presentation. You could tell a joke related to the presentation. Anyway, you get the idea. There's all sorts of things that you could do for creative opens. And then when it comes to what you can do to close your talk, you could bookend to the opening. So basically close with what you started with. And I'm going to I'll probably give that one a shot here for this episode. But you could also give a restatement of the objective and the rationale. So, hey, today, like I said, with this, and I think there's going to be a little bit of that. So I'm not going to explain it too much because I think what I have here is going to do that. You could end with a quotation. You could end with an illustration. You can end with a public response. Before I go on, let me share with you my favorite open that I ever did and my favorite close. And I could have never dreamed it would have turned out as well as it did. But when I did I think it was the November 2013 platform conference for Michael Hyatt. No, scratch that. Yes. It was November 2013 because November 2014 was in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So it was November 2013. And it was in Dallas, Texas. I started the talk by asking, who here has a podcast right now? Raise your hands. There were only a handful of people in the audience who had a podcast. I said, who here has a plan to launch a podcast within the next 90 days? And then only probably 4 or 5 more people rose their hands. This audience had well over 200 people in the audience. Now, all of those people were entrepreneurs who were emerging as thought leaders and who wanted to get noticed in a noisy world because they had read Michael Hyatt's best-selling book titled Platform: How to Get Noticed in a Noisy World. And almost all of them were bloggers or aspiring bloggers. And what I gave on that talk is every entrepreneur emerging as a thought leader must create a podcast within the next 90 days because of these 7 benefits. And then I broke down and I made it absolutely crystal clear why blogging is a waste of time. Not the blogging itself is a waste of time, because I'd never believed that. But when you compare it to launching a podcast in 2013, it's obvious that if you only had time for two different things, creating a podcast episode or writing a blog post, this is going to make it obvious that you are wasting your time, effort, and energy if you're writing a blog post instead of creating a podcast episode. And then I did the same thing for YouTube videos and stuff like that. But so I talked about that. And by the end of the talk, I closed with this. I said, here's what I'd like to do. Those of you who said that you already have a podcast, I'd like you to stand. And then I asked the audience to look at these people, because these are people who already have done it and have seen these benefits, and you need to network with them at the next opportunity before you go home. And then I said, now I'd like to ask this question. For those of you who are standing, stay standing. How many of you here today who do not currently have a podcast absolutely plan to have a podcast within the next 90 days? Every other person. And not like every other, but I mean like every person in the audience stood up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did that. How did I do that? That is mind-blowing. And that is the power of absolutely knowing ahead of time that every entrepreneur who wants to build a platform to get noticed in a noisy world must create a podcast within the next 90 days because of these 7 benefits. And I gave that talk and I persuaded them all to make a commitment to go launch a podcast. And they all did. It was amazing. But I don't know if they all did, but they all stood up. It was incredible. Anyway, so options for close. But as I wrap up this episode, as I wrap up the journey through these 9 focusing questions, I want to take you back to that conference scenario that we opened with. Remember the panic, the uncertainty, the challenge of stepping up and speaking on a stage in front of those who are your exact target audience for your business. And you have minimal preparation. Do you see how now, armed with these 9 powerful questions, you are no longer at the mercy of such situations that would lead to panic? These 9 focusing questions will absolutely transform the way you approach every opportunity that you have to design a presentation, to outline a podcast episode, if you choose to answer them. Imagine the confidence that you'll feel knowing that you can organize your thoughts quickly and effectively. I'm not suggesting that you only prepare for 15 minutes for anything. In fact, this episode, the outline has been simmering for me for just over a week. I had this all outlined, ready to go. But as I've been thinking about this episode over the last week, I've kind of just added little thoughts into how I might approach this, why it's important, why it's vital. And then I sat here in front of the microphone before I hit record and I reviewed the whole thing. I'm like, yeah, this is what I want. But now that I have this, knowing that I can outline any talk in 15 minutes or less has given me confidence, knowing that as long as I know what I'm talking about, I have the experience, I have the area of expertise, I have the knowledge, and now with an easy outline tool such as these 9 focusing questions, I can easily prepare for any talk in 15 minutes or less. It gives me so much confidence. And I want you to imagine the impact that you could have if you had this level of confidence that you could prepare a talk with minimal time outlining this. But knowing that even though it was a very short period of time that you were given to create the outline of the talk, you absolutely know that your message is clear, it's structured, and it is absolutely purposeful, and so much so that if anybody asks you before you step on stage or after you get off the stage, what was your talk about, that you could describe it with 1 sentence. Think about how this is going to elevate your status as a thought leader in whatever field that you are in. So I challenge you the next time that you are faced with a speaking opportunity, whether it's last minute request or a planned engagement, or even your next podcast episode or course that you're going to create, I encourage you to put these 9 focusing questions and this outlining process to work for you. Hey, before I wrap up today, I want to let you know there are several things that I've got going on where you and I could be in a relationship together on your entrepreneurial journey as you emerge as a influencer and thought leader in whatever niche you are in. The first thing I want to tell you about is my Next Level Mastermind. We have a handful of seats that are open, and this is an opportunity for you to be in a relationship with me every single week for at least 1 year. I encourage you to stay on longer. Many people who have been in the Next Level Mastermind had stayed on, and I have one gentleman who's been in the group for more than 6 years. Have had several people who were in the Next Level Mastermind for 4 to 5 years. Why? Because these entrepreneurs need to be in relationship with other people who are doing life at their level. People who understand the kind of decisions that you face, the kind of risks that you are taking in life. When you have an obstacle that stands in your way, when you've got a big decision of should I do this or should I do that, and you need some advice from others, you want to get that advice from somebody who has insight from experience, from education, from their area of expertise, people who have been there, done that, gone through what it is that you're looking to go through. I have been in online business for going on 20 years. I have been a professional salesperson for more than 30 years. And I've been a coach for going on 35 years. And I would love to share with you not only the education that I have accumulated, the experience that I have had, the areas of expertise that I've developed, my skills, talents, and abilities that I have honed over the years, the resources that I have available to me, the influence that I have. I want to not only bring all of that I have to share with you, but I'd love to expose you to that of a handful of curated people that I have personally invited to be a part of this very exclusive and very tight-knit group of entrepreneurs known as members of the Next Level Mastermind. You can learn more about this experience, this opportunity to journey with me and these other people who know what life is like at your level by simply going to nextlevelmastermind.info. Not .com, that's somebody else's mastermind. Go to nextlevelmastermind.info. You can find a link to that in the show notes here. A second opportunity to work with me over the next several weeks, months, or years ahead is if you are an aspiring entrepreneur or an early stage entrepreneur. This simply means that you are not making at least $10,000 a month every single month consistently yet. If that's you, I have a free course that I would love to give you. It's something that people have paid thousands of dollars to attain all of the information in this course live here on one of my Next Level workshops. It's called Building an Online Business. It has an 11-step formula for how to build an online business, plus other sessions that are absolutely transformational, specifically geared towards somebody who is an aspiring or early stage online entrepreneur. If that is you, I want to give you, number one, access to this course for free, but then if you complete the course, I would love to invite you to experience 2 sessions for free in my Next Level coaching program. This is a program that I host every single week for 90 minutes, and it's based upon the foundational principles that are outlined in building an online business, and I'm simply there to answer your questions that you have on this journey. And the greatest thing about the Next Level Coaching Program is you will not only benefit by directly getting the answers to your questions from me, you'll often find that other people are asking questions that you would have never thought to ask yourself. And it's those questions that bring aha moments, and the answers are then given to you as well. It is an incredible experience. It's the Next Level Coaching Program, and the way that you get in through that, there's no sales page. You email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. In the subject line, put Next Level Coaching Program. What you need to do is tell me that you're an early stage or aspiring entrepreneur, that you heard about the Next Level Coaching Program and you would like access to the free course. Anything along that lines, and I will first give you access to the course. Assuming that you complete the course, I will then invite you into a complimentary 2 sessions. And then after that, there are, by the way, no strings attached. There's no expectation, no obligation that you become a paid member of the Next Level Coaching Program. But then at the end of your second session, afterwards, I will reach out to you, probably usually 1 to 3 business days after your second experience, and ask you, would you like to continue on in this program? And if you say no, I just want to tell you right now, it's perfectly fine. 50% of those who I ask say no, and it's perfectly fine. And I love working with those who say yes. All right. So those are 2 major opportunities. And the third is a time-sensitive one. And even though I anticipate this is going to be an evergreen piece of content, what I'm about ready to share with you is very time-sensitive. However, in the event that you would like to attend any live event that I'm hosting as a workshop, I would encourage you just to email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com, and say, hey, Cliff, I'm listening to this November 2024 episode 746 of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. I recognize that it's past your entrepreneurial event for married couples. What are your current live events? Ask me that. But I do want to say, here's the time-sensitive part. I am going to be hosting with my wife an event that is hosted for entrepreneurial married couples. This is going to be an event where both the husband and wife are working on building a life and business together. Now, whether you and your spouse are building the same business like my wife and I are doing, or maybe you have a business in one particular area and your spouse has a different niche audience, but the two of you are very much advisors to one another, and everything is you guys are either on the same page or you have a very strong desire to be on the same page, completely aligned. Stephanie and I have been working over the years with many different entrepreneurial couples who are on this path, who have been struggling in their personal life and their professional life. And there's a lot of things that can be learned, some strategies and frameworks and techniques about communication, but also business strategy and ideas that can radically transform the way that you communicate with each other and the way that you communicate with your audience, and some techniques and strategies that might elevate the way that you market your business, your products or services. It might help you overcome some of the limitations that you have on pricing and money mindset. There's all sorts of things that Stephanie and I want to help entrepreneurial couples do. And we are anticipating doing an event live here in our home in the second week of December. Here in the Next Level Studio, which is where it's in the basement of our home, where we built an entire classroom in the house that podcasting built. If you want to learn more about Stephanie and I and our journey together as an entrepreneurial married couple, you can find out all of the details in a podcast that we do together over at buildingalifeandbusinesstogether.com. Yes, that's all one URL. buildingalifeandbusinesstogether.com. But if you would like to participate as a married couple in this live workshop that Stephanie and I are hosting, it is limited to 5 entrepreneurial married couples. No more than 5. We want, matter of fact, we have decided that if one couple comes, we will still host this workshop with that couple. That's how much we have a passion for helping any entrepreneurial married couple find alignment and to thrive not only in their personal life but also their business life. And certainly where we see a lot of struggle is when the business life might be actually profiting, but it's costing a lot in the marriage relationship. So anyway, we are very much looking to have an opportunity up to 5 married couples, second week in December. These, my friend, these are the opportunities that you and I have to be together, to work together, whether it's for a couple of days in December, or if it's a couple of weeks or months or years in the Next Level Coaching Program, or maybe you become somebody that's all the way up in there and as a member of my own Next Level Mastermind. I can't wait to hear from you. Any of them that you have questions about, email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. And until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.
Mindset Answer Man.